I'm Mark, and today we begin the Jojo's Bizzare Adventure series. One of my favorites. You like my shirt? Yeah, I do too. By covering the first part of the entire franchise, Phantom Blood. Jojo's Bizzare Adventure was written and illustrated by mangaka Hirohiko Araki, and the first volume of Phantom Blood would release in 1987 and would become, well, this franchise in general would become his magnum opus. Jojo has currently 8 finished parts in the manga and the 9th one that's being currently worked on. And Phantom Blood had an original film adaptation that was lost to time in 2007 by Studio APPPP, a bunch of PP, I know. This adaptation had a limited theatrical release, and they wasn't released in home media. It was just gone forever, not in streaming. But I think there's been some parts that have been revived by the internet. But in 2012, David Production would make another adaptation of JoJo's Phantom Blood, which would become the most known adaptation because it's the one that's currently doing it today. As of right now, only 6 parts are coming, or have been animated. But March 19th, baby! March 19th, Steel Ball Run releases its first episode, meaning it's officially being adapted, and I honestly can't wait for Steel Ball Run. I don't have a shitty haircut. Don't ask where. The story of Phantom Blood is just set in English in the middle 1800s or whatever. It's about a brother. It's about Jonathan Joestar and the Joestar family taking in Dio Brando, who is evil and all this shit. I can't really explain it well, but Dio eventually becomes a vampire, becomes evil, that's all I'm gonna give you, that's all I'm gonna learn. And then Jonathan also learns a sunlight-based technique called Hormone. That's pretty much it for a quick plot synopsis, but how many people die by the hands of vampires? Let's get to the kills. Our series begins on a carriage crash in 1868 where we see the corpse of Mary Joestar and an unnamed driver. Dario Brando and his wife investigate the site. Dario wants to ransack the site, but it's revealed there are 2 survivors, George Joestar and his infant son, Jonathan. George believes Dario saved them and he wants to repay him in the future. We fast forward 12 years into the future. We see the life of the youngsters Jonathan Joestar and Dio Brando. We see the contrast of Jonathan's wealthy life and an introduction to the character of Irina Pendleton, the main love interest. And we see Dio's life of poverty and the abuse. And through these moments, we see the grave of Dario Brando, which is conveniently placed next to his wife, so we're just gonna add them both to the count right now. Quick thing, the only reason I added Dario's wife was because even though she didn't die on screen or anything, we knew her before she died, before her death was described. I don't know why I said that her grave was next to Dario's, but that's why we decided to add her on the count, so yeah, deal with it. We cut to Dio at the Joestar mansion, which also establishes Dio and Jonathan's beef for the rest of the episode. Then we go on with Dio's antics for the rest of the episodes, which is quote-unquote ruining Jonathan Joestar's life, which causes him to spend more time with Irina Pendleton. And this also causes Jonathan to self-ship himself with Irina. Dio doesn't like that Jonathan's life is much happier because of Irina. So this anger makes Dio forcefully kiss Irina, ruining her relationship with Jonathan, which sucks for our good old Johnny boy. This leads to a fight between Jonathan and Dio, where Jonathan absolutely rocks the shit out of Dio, bro. Dio, being salty, decides to make a setup to burn Danny the dog alive? What the actual fuck? Danny will not be added to the count because he is a dog and I don't add dogs. The episode ends with a funeral for Danny and a monologue from Dio and a to be continued meme. We cut to the future in 1888 where we see Jack the Ripper just killing a random woman. Cut to Jonathan and Dio being much older. We learn that their father, George Joestar, has contracted an illness. starts to suspect something because it has worsened. Jonathan begins to analyze the stone mask. Jonathan then finds out about Dario's letter and goes to confront Dio around it. Jonathan tells Dio that he knows his true intentions and that he's poisoning George Joestar. Jonathan goes to Ogre Street, London, where he gets jumped by a bunch of thugs, where we meet the best waifu in anime history, Robert E.O. Speedwagon. After a light scuffle against Speedwagon, a group of thugs are gonna jump him, but Speedwagon stops him as he has gained respect for Jonathan and becomes his ride or die. We cut to a drunken Dio on the streets. After bumping into two men, they tease him until Dio hits him with a bottle. Dio puts the stone mask that we have not talked about a bunch on the guy and then stabs the other one in the throat. Due to the stone mask, the other guy turns into a vampire. Blah, blah, blah. Vampire almost kills Dio, but the sun comes up and disintegrates his ass. Dio returns to the manor where he is awaited by Jonathan. Jonathan reveals to Dio that he knows he has poisoned their father and has given him the antidote. Dio puts on a remorseful act, but it's called out as a bluff by Speedwagon. It's also revealed that Wang Chan has told him about Dio's plans. Why does this guy Wang Chan look like Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z? Bro's got the pa 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 ra pa, I'm loving it as hairline, bruh. Dio then walks up to Jojo Seal and tells him he's the one that wants him to put handcuffs on him and throw him into imprisonment. But then Dio pulls out the stone mask and the knife, going to stab Jonathan! Jojo, watch out! But George decides to take the knife stab for his baby boy. And Dio puts on the mask for power! The police shoot at Dio, sending him outside. This allows us to add Mr. Joster to the count. We see that Dio's body has disappeared, which... Uh-oh! Then the Inspector just gets his fucking head ripped off by a vampire Dio. Blah, blah, blah. Since normal human weapons don't work on Dio anymore, Dio sucks one of the officers off. Dio then chucks his body at the officers, killing him. Then the corpse starts moving because it's become a zombie. Because Dio has the power to do that. I did not count the first officer on the count because I do not count the vampires turning into the people turning into the zombies. The zombie officer goes to attack Speedwagon. No! Until Jonathan saves our boy by killing the officer zombie. The rest of the episode is a showdown between Jonathan and Dio. Do a quick explanation on what happens this episode. Fire happens. Our glorious King Speedwagon makes it out safe. Dio and Jonathan scuffle. Dio is presumed dead, even though he is not, because he's the main fucking villain in part 3 and in the rest of this part. Jonathan makes it out. Wang Chan returns. Dio's alive! Woo! Speedwagon goes to visit Jonathan in the hospital, but we see he's in the care of Arena Pendleton. See, I told you she was going to be more important later. Cut to Whitechapel, London, where we see Jack the Ripper kill another female. Dio's Emperor Palpatine looking ass then turns Jack the Ripper into a vampire, which we are not counting. Jonathan visits the ruins of his childhood home. While on a walk with Arena, a fancy-looking gentleman named William Antonio Zeppeli throws a jab at Jojo that cures his broken arm due to his breath. Zeppeli tells Jonathan to follow him and shows off Halma and tells Jojo that Dio Brando is still alive. We cut to Dio killing a woman for supplements and feeds her to Jack the Ripper. We cut to Zeppeli training Jonathan to use hormone, and he reveals why he's after the stone mask to Jonathan. He explains that when he was young, he joined his father's archaeological team. They found the stone mask and a member donned it out of curiosity, which just killed most of the team excluding Zeppeli. Well, obviously, he's right fucking here. Speedwagon then appears stating that Dio has been spotted in the town of Midnight Slot, so they immediately set off in a carriage, which is stopped mid-tunnel since Jack the Ripper killed the horses. Jack the Ripper does an attack, which closes off the tunnel for our Zeppeli and Jack the Ripper have a little scuffle, which causes him to run away. So Zeppeli tells Jonathan to go defeat Jack the Ripper without spilling the liquid, which he successfully does, killing the Ripper. Hey, so when I was editing this, I realized it was gonna be too long, and I didn't want it to be too long because since it's Jojo's and it's more popular, it's probably gonna have like a bigger issue of copyright. So this was originally supposed to be an entire, just like the entire part was supposed to be covered in one video, but we're just gonna split it into 2 parts, which I was gonna do for the other parts because they're like fucking 20 plus episodes. They're like fucking 30 and 40. So yeah, so thank you for watching what we have so far. Next time I will do 5 through 9, and I will release those on the 19th just so I can get this one out, and then 19th we'll finish JoJo's part 1.